Today, let's explore newly surfaced documents that claim to reveal the truth behind the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests in Beijing. These documents challenge the widely accepted narrative of a massacre in the square, alleging foreign involvement in orchestrating the protests and shaping a misleading story. We'll examine these claims while focusing on their implications and the evidence. Let's talk about it. 大家好，我是 Surant 在中国. Hey everyone, it's Surant in China. How y'all doing today? I hope you're having a lovely day. I'm having a bit of a crazy day over here in China these days because I just bought a house and I'm in the process of not only moving out of my existing home, but getting the new home ready to move in. It has been quite a lot of work, and I'm going to make some videos explaining the entire process to you so you know just what goes into buying a home in China, how the 70-year lease works, and just how much money this is going to save me in the long run in a place that already has a very, very low cost of living. It's really interesting stuff, but all of that's going to come in a different video. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's very, very interesting. It's one that I get comments on all the time. Literally, people making foolish comments, rude comments, and in many cases, undereducated comments on a topic that everybody seems to think they know so much about. But do they really? In April 1989, Beijing's Tiananmen Square became the epicenter of student-led protests sparked by the death of Hu Yaobang, a reformist leader whose passing ignited public grief and calls for political reform, free speech, and an end to corruption. By June 4th, the Chinese military cleared the square, and Western media reported a brutal massacre, with some estimates claiming 10,000 deaths. However, newly uncovered documents, reportedly compiled by a Hong Kong group from public but hard-to-access sources, argue that no massacre at all occurred in Tiananmen Square itself. Instead, they claim violence erupted elsewhere in Beijing, particularly in Muxidi, 5 kilometers away, where clashes between protesters and soldiers led to casualties. A 2011 WikiLeaks cable, citing a Chilean diplomat present in the square, supports this, noting that troops used anti-riot gear, not gunfire, and students left peacefully after concluding negotiations. The Chinese government's official count of 200 to 300 deaths, including soldiers, aligns with this narrative, though human rights groups estimate higher numbers. The documents allege significant U.S. involvement in the protests, beginning in 1988. They claim U.S. units trained Chinese dissidents under the cover of a Beijing-based magazine, The Chinese Intellectual, funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. With an unusually large annual budget of $130,000 to $235,000 US dollars, this publication reportedly organized public events to engage young people in political discussions and training them for protests. The NED, established in 1983 and linked to U.S. efforts to promote democracy, has been criticized as a CIA front. The documents further allege that the CIA supplied activists with equipment like typewriters and fax machines, as reported by the Vancouver Sun, to amplify their anti-government message and reach a broader local audience. Additionally, the documents claim that the U.S. military psychological operations specialists, PSYOPs, included a retired colonel named Robert Helvey, trained student leaders in Hong Kong to escalate protests into street battles. Helvey, an expert in using youth movements for regime change, where have we heard that before, was reportedly monitored by Indian counterterrorism officer B. Raman, who noted his activities in a 1988 to 89 report. The Chinese government raised concerns about U.S. interference in early 1989, as documented in a U.S. Embassy cable, but no response was recorded. The documents suggest that the U.S. incentivized student leaders with offers of passports, safe passage, and enrollment in elite universities like Harvard and Princeton. For example, student leader Chai Ling, who predicted a massacre in late May, later attended Princeton, while others like Wu Kai-shi studied at Harvard. Operation Yellowbird, a covert effort reportedly involving Western intelligence, facilitated the escape of dissidents, raising questions about whether these were humanitarian acts or rewards for covert service to NED. The most striking claim is that the Tiananmen Square massacre narrative, 10,000 students machine gunned, their bodies bulldozed and incinerated, was utter fiction, spread by US, UK, and Australian diplomats. A 1989 cable from British Ambassador Alan Donald reported 10,000 deaths, but he later revised this to 2,700 to 3,400, which is still higher than most estimates. By the first week of June, journalists like Jay Matthews of the Washington Post and Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times reported no massacre at all in the square, with students leaving peacefully. Spanish TV crews and a Chilean diplomat confirmed this, yet Western media, including BBC and the Associated Free Press, continued to perpetuate the 10,000 death figure, even as late as 2017. The documents allege this was a deliberate black op to vilify China, with some diplomats aware of the falsehood within days. The protests' escalation is attributed to external manipulation. After Hu Yaobang's death on April 15, 1989, genuine public grief was allegedly exploited. Protesters, initially patriotic supporters of socialism, carried Mao portraits and sang the national anthem. But English language banners like "Give Me Democracy" or "Give Me Death" started to appear, echoing American rhetoric. By late May, as protests all but disappeared, the documents claim U.S. agents urged students to intensify actions, promising rewards. On June 3rd, violence erupted in Mushidi when unidentified groups attacked army buses with petrol bombs, killing soldiers and provoking retaliation against protesters, mostly trade unionists, not students. In the square, student leader Feng Congde negotiated a peaceful exit, contradicting the entire massacre narrative. Critically, these claims require scrutiny. The NED's funding of pro-democracy groups is well documented, and Operation Yellowbird's role in aiding dissidents is confirmed. However, evidence of direct CIA training or a fabricated massacre is largely circumstantial, relying on unverified reports and the absence of primary documents. Eyewitness accounts, including those from Western journalists, confirm violence in Beijing, but not in the square, suggesting exaggeration and outright fabrication. The Chinese government's lack of transparency did complicate verification, as does the US government's lack of honest accountability in general when it comes to covert operations all around the world. Covert operations that exist to this very day, as cities in the Middle East burn and economies are crippled by ridiculous and unjust trade wars. It's interesting to note that the former head of the NED, Karen Bass is currently the mayor of Los Angeles, a city where the U.S. military was called in against the wishes of local leadership and the governor of California to put down peaceful protests by force and terrorize the residents while protecting ICE agents during one of the most barbaric and unjustified deportation actions in U.S. and likely world history. That military force is not only still deployed in Los Angeles, but their numbers keep growing by the thousands on a regular basis. Will these grievous actions against its own people also go down in world history and be vilified like Tiananmen Square was? Or will it just be swept under the rug and forgotten in the future? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, we will see you in the next video.